Hello everyone. Let me just check the if it is live on YouTube and LinkedIn. Okay, so YouTube is working. Let me check the LinkedIn. Okay, I think LinkedIn is working too. Perfect, and it is mute as well. Cool. Hello everyone. I am Suraj Narvade. Uh, I run this channel, Suraj in Cloud. Uh, I decided to write awsctl, this tool, which we will start writing, and in upcoming stream as well, we'll try to add more features to it and kind of do the development in public approach. Uh, the very first thing, the reason why I'm doing this is whenever I wanted to get some information from AWS, right? The AWS CLI, it doesn't return like output which is like helpful. Like you have to do a lot of other things, like uh, pipe the output and use some tools like JQ or some other tools, and then you get your output, right? So what I used to do was like whenever I needed some information, I used to write a small Golang script which will do a very specific task. For example, list out RDS with a particular parameter group or a particular version, or list all security groups, or list all EC2 instance, or list EKS clusters. All those kind of things I used to do. So every time, instead of writing those command, I thought, why not write a CLI which will give me information that I want, right? And the inspiration is obviously the kubectl, CLI, which is the Kubernetes CLI. uh, it gives very good information out of the box. Like we don't need to uh, pass any, like you can use JQ and all other things to get the information, but the most basic information you can achieve with the help of kubectl, right, in the tabular format, or you can pass some flags. So what I want to achieve with the help of awsctl is kubectl style output and the flags, but for the AWS, right? So that I don't need to write those small commands again and again. Now second thing I want to do is now that I want to work on this project, I want to do this live on the stream. I know that's little scary. My sometimes the code may not work or it will work, but that's fine, I'm not afraid of it. And if there are any beginners and newcomers who want to start their own open source project, or they want to learn how the process of any project is, uh, and even if someone wants to contribute, I think the stream will be helpful to them. So let's get started. Right now, in today's stream, we'll keep it to very basic. I already explained why I want to write this CLI tool. And again, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat, and I'll try to answer while we are doing this. Right now, I'll share my screen. Hope everyone can see the screen. So let's quickly get started. For any open source project, it starts with the creating a repository. So I'll create a repository in my organization called Suraj in Cloud. Okay, and the AWS repository name will be awsctl, which I mentioned. Maybe there are already projects with the same name, but it's quite common in open source community that there will be project with the same name, which is fine. And again, if there are any conflict, sometimes people tend to change the project name as well, which is absolutely fine. uh, yeah, so let's create the repository awsctl. Let's add the description. We'll say uh, AWS CLI written in Go, right? And we can change this anytime as well. So, and the visibility will set to public because we want this to be open source project. We'll add a readme as well. And here is license. We can like select the license as well. Now, one question is how to select the license. So when I started sharing, you must have seen this website, choose a open source license. It's pretty good website based on the use case, such as I need to work in community, I want it simple and permissive, I care about sharing, right? Like based on that, there are Apache license, MIT license, GNU license, right? So now I'm going with this approach of build in public. uh, I want to build a community around it, and I want the contribution from the community as well, right? So what I will do is I will go with the I need to work in a community, and there are various license here, and that you can see some of the examples are Apache Foundation takes Apache license, then CNCF also takes Apache license, and other communities you can see they leverage the Apache license. Usually I also use Apache license for my other open source project as well. So going back to the creating repository, we'll select the Apache license 2.0. Okay, and then let's create the repository. Now what will happen is the readme is defined, and the license file, which was Apache 2.0, is already populated by GitHub. Now the first step is done. We have a repository for our project. Now, again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat, whether LinkedIn chat or YouTube chat, and I'll try to answer. Now, let's clone this repository. awsctl, right? We have cloned the repository now. Uh, Now, next thing is like, since it's a CLI, we have to build a skeleton for it, like how the command will look like and stuff like that, right? Since this is the first session and I want to keep it very basic and minimal, so we won't go into the actual defining the AWS client, but we'll just define a basic skeleton, and we'll implement a very basic command which will say version. Okay. Now, for the CLI, there are multiple libraries available in the Golang, but what I prefer is this library called Cobra. So before this, I have worked on multiple CLI tools, and such as Kcompose, which is the tool to convert the Kubernetes, the Docker Compose YAML to the Kubernetes, and then I worked on Odo CLI, which is the OpenShift CLI. Uh, all of them used Cobra, and even for my other personal project, such as the ECAS plugin for kubectl, I use the Cobra library. It's quite good. The documentation is really good and very easy to use as well, right? So again, Cobra library for creating powerful modern CLI. And you can see like the projects which I worked on, I mentioned, but apart from that, the famous Kubernetes, the which Kubernetes everyone knows, Hugo, which is a static site generator written in Golang, and the GitHub CLI, like the CLI to interact with GitHub. All of them relies on the Cobra for their CLI structure. Right? One second. Perfect. Now, you can actually simply go get and it go get the that particular Cobra library and start importing and using it, right? But there is one more interesting thing which Cobra CLI has is the Cobra CLI generator, which we will be using. So first, let's get this, and then we'll go into the documentation and see what it is doing. Okay, so it is working. Meanwhile, it is installing the Cobra CLI. What we will do is we'll go to the Cobra generator README, which I already opened here. Okay, now what this generator do is it it will generate a skeleton, as I mentioned. Right now, I'm not gonna go line by line here. I already read it, but what I will do is I will post this links in the chat box so you all can also see. And this is the generator. Okay. Now, okay, our generator is ready. Now to use it, what we have to do is go inside the application directory, which we are already in, the awsctl. Let me increase the font a bit. Yeah. And then we will run this command go mod init and our GitHub URL. Okay. So let's do that. Go mod init and it will be github.com/cloud/awsctl. Okay, so what it did was it created a go mod file. Now let's see that into. Oh, okay, it opened on my other screen, so let's open it here. Okay, and this. Perfect. So now if you see, it created a Go mod file. Uh, I am a bit behind the Go 117, but I'll update the Golang version later after the stream to the latest one. And in next stream, I'll show you that I have updated the version. Okay. So that's the Go mod file, which was mentioned here. Then we will initialize our Cobra CLI app. Okay. Now, what they are doing is Cobra CLI init. Okay, so let's do it. Cobra CLI init. Oops, we did install. Okay, let's try installing it again. If you have any idea why it failed, do let me know in the chat. Okay, so this would be here. They mention that it will be in a bin Cobra. Okay, here it is actually Cobra CLI. Okay, okay, but I think it's not part of my path. Okay, so what I will do is for the simplicity, I will just move the Cobra CLI to the location which I know, and then we'll use it. Okay, this is not the good way to do this, but for the sake of the stream, I'll just move it and then later we'll solve the problem why it didn't happen. Okay, now we will have to close the terminal and again open the terminal to Oh, something's wrong actually. Not sure why it is not working, but oh, the path is not there. Okay, so let's add a path to path variable. I'm searching on other screen. Okay, so all you have to do is export. Okay, export path equal to dollar path colon local slash bin. Okay. Now I think we'll have to put in. This is what happens in a live demo, and which is fine. I think this will be a learning for new viewers as well. Okay, now hit the export. Now if we do the path, okay, it's there. And interesting, it is still not doing it. Not sure why. Oh, did it even work? Ah, okay. It's not even a directory. How it will work? Okay. Ah, oh my god. This is such a pain. It's not a directory. I think I made a mistake. Okay. I know what I did. So basically, if you see, the bin is actually the file. Okay. So let's first do this to Cobra CLI and we'll create the bin directory. Let's move the Cobra CLI to bin. Now, okay, do this. It's working now, right? Echo dollar path. Cool. We are in a path variable. So I am a bit unfamiliar with the Mac. That's why I am closing and opening the terminal. Very sorry for the inconvenience here, but that's how it works, right? For the first time. Now, if I do echo path, my path is gone because I haven't added that into my. Okay, that's fine. Now, okay, now Cobra CLI is working. Ah, that was such a pain. Okay, now we are inside the awsctl, and now we are ready to uh, create our first command. Okay, so now Cobra CLI init. Perfect. Okay, so for the ease, I will move this here. Okay, so Cobra CLI init as shown here. Perfect. Okay, my Cobra CLI application is ready, and as you can see, it did updated my GoMod file and it did added a main.go along with some Cobra related code. Okay, it's a generator, it will add some code. Now here you can add your name and email address. We can sort out that later. Now if you run this command, go run main.go, it gave you some default output which was there, right? So if you go into the cmd, it actually ran the root command, which is our awsctl, right? Now if you build this, right, go build -o awsctl main.go, and if you do awsctl-h, you will see the exact description which was here, okay, which was auto generated. Now what we will do is we will write a short description for our this particular root command, so that if anyone does -h for to see the help, they will see, what tool is this. So for now we'll just add a short description saying it's a aws cli written in go, and then in the long description as well, we'll write few things later, but for now we'll just write something like this. uh, so aws cli written in, and since this is the multi-line command, we'll just keep it to it. We'll update this later. Okay, now let's build our this thing again. And now if you run the -h, we will see the AWS CLI written in Golang. You will see the long description which was there. Actually, yeah, this is fine. Now this is just the root command, and as I mentioned, we'll add one more command uh, as shown in the doc. Okay, so as shown here, what you can do is something like this. Okay, now for example, if you want to add a command called app is basically our awsctl, and you want a command called serve, you will do kubectl add serve. Or you need command called config, you will do add config. Or if you need a sub command, for example app config create, you will say kubectl add create to the config cmd. Okay, now in our case, the very first command we are going to implement is version. So what we will do is kubectl add version. Okay, so let's go here, kubectl add version. Okay, and now in the code, if you see, it added a one more command which says version. Okay, and what we will do is we will add the short description which will say show version of awsctl, right? And even the long description will be, we will update it now, and we'll say show version of aws, oops, awsctl. Okay, now we are not adding any functionality inside there this command at the moment. We are just generating the skeleton. Okay, now we will again generate our binary. Now I haven't added any make file or anything to make it bit nicer. We'll again add that later. So let's build the binary, and now if you do -h, you will see that the description for our root command, you will see the usage, you will see what commands are available, and the flags you will see. Right now we haven't written this, but this generator automatically generated this stuff for us, right? Which is pretty cool. Like, you don't need to write so many things. Also, similarly, now if you run a version command, it will simply say version called. Okay, And why that is showing, I'll show you that. Before that, I want to show you the hyphen h command, which will show, show versions of awsctl, which we said. Okay. Now going back to the version command, it said version called, and the reason for that is, if you look at version.go, this version cmd is defining the struct cobra.command. If we go inside the command, it has various fields such as use, what would be the aliases for this particular command, or is there any short description, do you want to show any example, and all those things, right? Now already have a kubectl. Now I'll just show you how it is similar to kubectl, and kubectl also uses this. Okay, my friend has joined. Let me add Rishikesh. Hello, Rishikesh.
Hey everyone.
Hi. So what we have done is, I simply introduced to the AWS CTL. Here is the we created the repository as well. We chose the license type Apache, and we just started with Cobra CLI. We had some issues with the Cobra CLI, but that's all sorted now.
Right.
And what this generated the AWS CTL, the whole skeleton as well, and we were just adding the version command, so I don't think you missed much.
Great.
So, and I was just explaining like how it is very similar to kubectl, because kubectl also relies on this. And other thing I
Yeah.
was about to solve was the awsctl version, it printed a version called, and why that was because the print statement version called is here under this run, and basically it runs a function and which prints something. So in our case, we'll add a version saying 0.1.0. And then if we run, oops, or build, and if we do version now, it will show you the version, right? Yeah. So Rishikesh, uh, do you have any thoughts? I did explain about why we are doing this, but what are your thoughts on the AWS CTL?
Well, that's yeah. I would say let's see how it goes. But in general, like yeah, it's a good exercise to understand first thing like how to write a CLI.
Yeah,
Um, One of the good thing that we are trying to envision here with AWS CLI is the great developer experience, just like how the user experience with the UI matters.
yeah,
We believe when it's come to it should be very equivalently what should be happening with the developer experience in
yeah,
general, and that's the intent here,
yeah,
because we believe like for example on my personal note, like say Docker CLI, and as well as the kubectl CLI are one of the two greatest example that ever emerge as kind of a great CLI experience when it's come to its end user.
yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So as I mentioned, like we want it to be very similar to the kubectl style, and today we are not going to add any actual AWS logic, but what we will do is we'll simply make a little skeleton of get command, right? So AWS will get what do you say, EC2 and S3. We'll just add those two commands, and then
Yeah.
we'll stop the stream, and then in next stream we'll add a few more things, right?
Right.
So now how we added the version command, similarly now we will add a get command. Okay, so cobra ctl add get, and again if you see, uh, it created a new file get.go, and along with the whole sorts of information, like what will get command do, and now we'll have to add this, right? But the story doesn't end here, right? We need information about AWS resources. So what we will do is we'll add few more sub commands to it. Now, as shown in the documentation, if you want to add a sub command, for example here, what they did was app config and app config create. So similarly, we'll add a new command in a very similar to this way. So let's try to add Cobra CLI add. In our case, we'll say EC2 and hyphen P. Hyphen P means to which command this will be sub command. In this case, they had a config CMD, and in our case, will have a get CMD. Now, there are more advanced way to how we can restructure this. Maybe once we have a uh, working CLI, then we can think about restructuring the code or optimizing the code. But for now, we can stick to basics. So I have added for EC2 as well, and I'll quickly do this for S3 as well. Now, if we go back to our VS Code, you can see it had added three more commands, which was get, which we saw, and the ec2.go and the s3.go as well. Feel free to interrupt me, Rishikesh, if you have anything to add.
Um, well, yeah, just a couple of questions. If you see the kubectl experience, usually the pattern is like and the verb basically, and basically what object you want to work with that.
Yeah,
Usually, if you see, it's more of like the way we speak in general language, like
yeah,
hey Suraj, get me a list of pods, something like this. Um, we can do something like this, but it would be kind of add complexity to the way we are writing the CLI. So now instead of that, we'll just try to go with like object, and then we'll define the operations.
yeah.
But yeah, just maybe a couple of things. Just note here what we are doing with the kubectl versus the AWS right now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Suraj? If you want to say anything.
Yeah. That totally makes sense. But again, as we discussed, uh, first we want to
Yeah,
initialize this in the form of kubectl, so the users who are watching will get an idea. And once we have a small working model, what we can do is we can rethink and do one session on uh, does does the kubectl style make sense, where the verb comes the first and then the resource comes later, which is kubectl get pod, right?
true.
1 second, I'll show on my kubectl get pod, basically the command and the verb and the object. Whereas this can be like we can discuss, like this can be something like this as well, right? That's what we
Yeah,
are saying.
exactly.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
now, that's what we are supposed to do here,
yeah.
in a way.
Uh, but I think for now, what we are doing is like what we added, we can restructure this as well, which is this, something similar to this, but instead we have something like this for now, just to begin with,
Yeah,
and then we will restructure.
yeah,
And again, restructuring, because this is the initial project, initial state, we can restructure however we want.
absolutely.
Right? So for now, okay, cool. Now let's go to EC2. Here you can simply say short description. Uh, it will be, let's just see what kubectl get pod says, and then oops, it simply says display one or many resources for particular pod. Now kubectl has very robust structure of things, but in our simple case, we'll just say int ec2 related information. And in S3, we will say S3 related information, and we'll keep the rest as it is. Okay. Now let's build it. And now if we do awsctl-h, you will see now our get command is available. And if you do get -h, you will see our EC2 and S3 commands are available, right? Now, in upcoming stream, when we will add a working logic to this, so what we expect is when you do kubectl get EC2, or when you do kubectl get S3, it will get the information about EC2 and S3 and print in a nice format which is easy to consume. And we'll try to add more flags as well, which are there in kubectl, such as getting the output in a different format, or uh, getting more information, right? So things like this we will do in the upcoming stream. But I think that's it for this particular stream. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop in a chat or reach out to us. Uh, and yeah, I think thank you so much, Rishikesh, for joining as well. Uh, Hopefully, we'll do more advanced stuff in upcoming stream.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me here.
cool. Thank you.